Okay, we were talking before the break with Mitch Wagner, and that's an attorney at law. He's actually working with a group of homeowners, 500 plus. Is that right? 500 plus homeowners.
Yeah, and that's also commercial grows, businesses, and other interests.
Okay, so homeowners, basically property owners, is what we should say. So, so let's
and some renters also.
Oh, okay, so I'll make sure we're factually correct. Some renters, some tenants, and property owners, but over 500 roughly. Now, when we left, we were talking about. How the fire started, and we got to the one in San Isabel over by Dudley's, right? And we did the one down south, right, or up north, right? Wajito.
And we did Rice.
Okay, and we did Rice. So we got all those covered. Okay.
Right.
Now, obviously, SDG&E has had some sort of a response to you, or has said something about why they didn't shut those lines off. What in the world were they thinking?
Their position, what they were originally telling the media and saying publicly, is that line, the main line out of which,
right,
to shut it down, keep it out of service, would have deprived people of electricity. The problem is that's actually a backup line.
Yeah, so.
And in fact, SDG&E had that line out of service for months after the fires. So it never serviced anybody directly, still doesn't. So there's no reason they needed to keep that thing up and running in the face of these winds. It was just absurd.
You know, SDG&E says that the fires happened because of hurricane force winds, and that there was nothing that they could do that could have prevented it. How do you respond to that?
Well, I've got a number of responses. First of all...
Okay, it's a G-rated show, Mitch.
I got to tell you, it's a good thing you reminded me. First of all, it's really important to note when you're dealing with a propaganda machine like SDG&E has what the real facts are.
Right.
And you got to start with this notion that these were hurricane force winds. By definition, hurricane force winds are 73 miles per hour sustained winds and above. And
not gusts, sustained.
Not gusts, sustained.
There's a difference.
And I want to give you an example that's going to bring the point home to everybody in your audience.
There you go.
Hurricane Irene that just ravaged the East Coast.
Absolutely.
Okay, after it got through New York and got up into the New England states, anybody remember what happened? It got downgraded to what's called a tropical storm.
Right.
Because it had declined to winds in the 60s.
There you go.
Okay, so hurricane force is 73 and above. Okay, the Santa Ana winds that we had in October 2007 at the time of the fires were in the 20s and 30s with gusts to the 40s and 50s. Not even close to hurricane force winds.
So not sustained to 73 or whatever.
Not at all.
Right, okay.
Not at all. And what could they have done? You design them to withstand winds that you expect to occur.
Right.
And that's just a standard part of life in San Diego. Anybody in San Diego not heard of a Santa Ana wind?
Right.
If so, you've only moved here in the last week.
Exactly.
And so everybody knows it, the utilities know it, and you design the lines by, for example, as we were talking about in the earlier segment, having the lines far enough apart so they don't blow together in the wind.
Right.
And in the case of trees, when they're scheduled to be trimmed, you trim them.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. Now, to carry the point forward, in Florida, they do have hurricane force winds.
Right.
And with regularity. And guess what? In Florida, the utilities design their power lines to withstand winds well in excess of 100 miles an hour.
Right.
So this notion that SDG&E could not have done anything about it is absolutely absurd. And again, I'm going to go back to the point with the lines out at Witch Creek. Why would you re-energize those lines in red flag warning conditions by the National Weather Service after they had faulted twice that day?
Right.
So
you couldn't get a better signal to let you know that you need to shut them down and maybe go check it out. Right?
Absolutely, especially when a troubleman goes out there early morning, sees it at the substation, calls in and says, we need to patrol the lines and see what's going on.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, SDG&E is asking the Public Utilities Commission for a rate hike to cover the amounts that it has to pay to those who lost their homes. How can they do that? How is that possible?
They can because the system is set up to permit them to, but there is actually a little bit of rationality to it.
Didn't they make like $700 million last year profit or some crazy thing?
It was a bad year.
Oh my goodness.
So the year before, Sempra, Mike, had earnings of $1.1 billion. That's right, with a B.
With a B.
$1.1 billion. SDG&E by itself had profits somewhere between $300 and $400 million.
Oh, so they need to raise the rates. That's,
yeah, they need the money. They're hurting. And of course, the Sempra CEO, Donald Felsinger, had total compensation package of $10 million.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
But to get to the point, there is this rule of law that because a private utility is still providing public service to the public as a whole, that they should be responsible for fires caused by their power lines, whether they were at fault or not.
Right.
And so SDG&E has taken the position in an application to the California Public Utilities Commission, which is the one they have to go through to approve rate increases. They've said, look, we are responsible whether we're at fault or not, and so we should be able to pass this along in the form of a rate increase as an ordinary cost of doing business. And that's fine as far as it goes, but here's the problem with their position. At the same time they're doing that, they are trying, and thus far successfully, I gotta admit, they're trying to delay a jury trial to establish their fault. And the reason is, although they are responsible without regard to fault, in this case, for all the reasons I've identified, they are in fact responsible because they were not only negligent, but they were reckless in what they did, namely re-energizing the Witch Creek lines twice. And so we're going to present all that evidence to a jury, and we're confident that a jury is going to come back with findings not only of negligence, but recklessness. And if that is presented to the Public Utilities Commission, we believe that would seriously jeopardize SDG&E's prospects for a rate passer. Now, I got to point out, the CPUC, the Public Utilities Commission, is dominated by former utility company executives. You know, it'd be a little bit like Oakland Raider owner Al Davis retiring as owner, general manager of the team, and then officiating Chargers-Raiders games. That's the system, that's what we've got. But I got to tell you, if we get this thing to trial and a jury comes back with a finding of recklessness by SDG&E, even the CPUC, given its ties to the industry, is going to be hard-pressed to approve a rate pass-through like this to allow SDG&E to recover for its own fault. You know, there's a old legal principle. No one should benefit from his own wrong. And that's what SDG&E is trying to do here.
That's amazing. We got to get UCAN involved with you. Let's have them go with you to the hearing. Hey, stay with us. We're gonna take a break real quick. We'll be right back. Make sure you stay with us. We'll have more with Trent, more with Mitch Wagner, and more with Ted Bumgardner. I'm your host, Mike Litton with Keller Williams Realty. You're listening to the Real Estate Zone, airing every Saturday afternoon at 3 on 760 KFMB.